old business are a subdivision application for Mr. Desmond. Thank you very much, Bill, for showing up tonight. Appreciate it. Good seeing you.
Welcome.
And then after that, we'll take up the Winters application, a shoreland zoning application. Following that, we'll go with the Duncan application, and then we'll see how we are. All right, stand by. This would be the Desmond application. Okay. Okay. All right. Hi, Pete.
Hi, Pete. Hi, Sheila.
So we're starting on the Desmond application. Does everybody have the packet?
I don't, that's all right. I wasn't able to get it, so
No. Okay. All right.
my printer doesn't work either, so,
Oh, really?
yeah, so.
Okay. All right. So where were we when we last left? I could not attend the site visit that I had hoped. So Bill, I apologize. I couldn't get there on that following day. I know that there are some other notes here, so others had been able to go. So I'm thinking we probably want to start off with maybe a recap of the site visit. Would that be appropriate with the board members?
That would be fine.
Okay. So George, we have the notes that you had taken upon having done a site visit. Was anybody else able to get out to the site?
What particular site was this?
This was that subdivision that's on Route 8 and 11 across from Lois Hazlett's property.
Yes, yeah. Okay, I've just driven by it and I'm kind of familiar with the property, but I didn't get out and walk it.
Okay. Thanks, Pete. So I guess the notes are nicely organized. I guess I would want to ask George, would you care that we go through your notes, or would you like to go through the package, then reference notes that are applicable to the package? Or I would want to make sure we do this efficiently.
It'd probably be more efficient if we go ahead with the application and I can bring up things that I noted when I walked the property. It certainly raised a number of questions in my mind, which I listed on second page of my notes.
Okay.
And that are part of the our package.
Okay. So let's do that then. So we'll go through the application package that's in front of us. I think that's where we would need to be going through this before.
Maybe a good place to start, Peter, if I may, would be the two waiver requests.
Yes. Yep. Because yeah, we had noted two waiver requests before. Mr. Desmond had brought forward, right? One was about the hydrogeologic assessment, I think was one. And I think the reasoning was based on a letter from the well driller. Bill, do I have that right?
Yeah, a couple of folks, yeah.
Okay, and a couple.
Water
folks.
quality specialist and the soils guy.
Okay. And let's see now. If if the board doesn't mind, see, the waiver request was listed. I'm just trying to get to it so we could reference it in the notes appropriately. Well, all right, so the hydrogeologic assessment, George, what was your comments based on your site visit?
Well, just that, according to the site plan, we have a total area of 164,374 square feet in the 3-lot subdivision, which gives us a housing with 3 lots, gives us an average housing density of about 55,000 square feet. In the ordinance, that would trigger a hydrogeological assessment in section 6.3 12C to determine whether or not the septic systems on the 3 lots would contaminate drinking water supply wells within the subdivision or potentially off the subdivision, unless we grant a waiver.
Okay. So that's based on what we found in this in our ordinance, right? Also supported
Correct.
by state law, if I'm not mistaken, right? That is it? Do we call it density or?
Yeah, no, the density is one of the criteria in our ordinance in the section that I referenced.
Okay. And I know Mr. Desmond had said in his supporting document, letter that he addressed to us in a request for a formal waiver of the hydrogeologic assessment and the stormwater disposal plan for 330 Oakland Road, Belgrade, Maine. It's spoken to several experts in soils, water, and geology, and they all agree it's unnecessary and an expensive burden for the 3 house lots. In the end result, even when the residential building is erected, is that there's little to no impact on the groundwater, soils, or runoff. So I think it's important to reference our ordinance in response to that aspect, Mr. Desmond, about that. Not that it's decided, but just saying as we discuss this, that this is what would be going to.
Peter, if I may, I have a question for Mr. Desmond about one of the submittals he made in regard to this waiver request, which was from Steve Brackett of Mr. H2O. I had to Google that to figure out who that was, and apparently he sells and services water treatment systems. It's a franchise that Dead River owns,
Right.
the oil company. And to be honest with you, Mr. Desmond, I don't see where he has any qualifications that to, unless he's a hydrogeologist or something of that nature, beyond what, his water treatment credentials are. So I'm a little concerned about his conclusion and what the basis of it would be that nitrite concentrations in the groundwater would not exceed drinking water standards. And particularly since the soil test pit data from lot 1, which is the northernmost, or the Oakland, the closest to Oakland lot, and lot 3, which is the one at the extreme other end, both have showed significant limitations for a septic system. The first lot, it's bedrock within a couple of feet or 20 inches, and the other is groundwater within 24 inches. So I guess my first question is, who is this guy and what's his credentials?
Honestly, I don't know what his credentials are. He's a guy I've used for water quality on a lot of my properties. I was talking with him about the process. He said, I'll be up that way in the next couple of weeks. Let me swing by, take a look at it, and I'll give you my opinion.
Okay, but he's not a hydrogeologist, then. I'm right. He's a water treatment guy.
He does water treatment, correct?
Okay.
Okay. Thank you for that. That's a good question. And George, did you have a second question?
Well, I kind of incorporated into my first question. I just have a real concern about the suitability of this site for subsurface wastewater disposal at the 2 locations where the soil test pits were done. Under the ordinance, when you have limitations within 24 inches of the ground surface, we could require a second set of soil test pits to be conducted to determine whether a better site could be found, or if the original sites fail, whether there would be enough, a location for a replacement system. That doesn't directly deal with the threat to, the drinking water, the 2 new drinking waters. Well, for actually the existing drinking water supply for the existing home, but
Of course I do.
I'm
Do you-
sorry, did somebody say something?
He may have been talking elsewhere.
Oh, I'm sorry. Anyway, I just have a real concern, given the limitations of the site and the soil. By the way, the medium intensity soil maps indicate the same limitations for septic on this property, as was noted in the soil test pits.
Along with George's comment, considering the size of the lot, I think makes me wonder, to kind of go along with what George said. It adds to it.
Okay, thanks, Rich.
I should note, and this is noted in the notes that I submitted. I did not, where the soil test pit on lot 1, which is at the Oakland end again of the subdivision. I half expected to see bedrock right at the surface, given how shallow the soils are there, but I did not. I did not see bedrock right at the surface anywhere. It's obviously just underneath the surface. And the shallow, the groundwater on lot 3 makes perfect sense when you walk around it, because much of that, the third lot 3, is wetland and had standing water in it when I was there. And this is before all the heavy rains.
So I had a question.
Go
Peter?
ahead, Pete.
Yeah, so if we go ahead with the soil, the geo assessment and all, and those 2 ones he wants to waiver, what's that gonna tell us? That's gonna give us some definitive information as to whether or not we can, there are viable building lots? Is that what the assessments are gonna tell us?
Let's see. Pete, are you asking, let's see now, I want to make sure I'm understanding your question correctly. So the applicant would like to waive having to do the hydrogeologic assessment.
Yeah, and the other assessment, but anyway, the geological one, I'm sorry, I jumped the gun. On the geological one, So there's a question right now, listening to what, George's observations, notes and all that. It sounds to me that we need some more information, some valid information. So more so than what we have at this particular point. So will the geological assessment give us the type of information we need as to what do we need this for? Is it going to make a determination whether or not basically this lot is be able to put a building on it? Is that, what's the bottom line here, sort of on the geological assessment in this situation? Maybe. I'm trying to
You're
get,
right. I can address that in part and then others can chime in, yourself included. So Pete, it would be a waiver from having to do an investigation, a hydrogeological investigation under section 10.11, which addresses what impact on groundwater quality and hence drinking water quality would septic systems on that site have. In other words, would it contribute enough nitrate and nitrogen and possibly bacteria such that the any drinking water supplies drilled into that property would not be potable?
right, so the assessment would tell us that?
It would project it.
It would project it.
Yeah,
So-
it would be an estimate of the nitrate, nitrogen concentrations in groundwater.
Okay, so if the projection comes out where it'd be high concentration nitrate and all that stuff, what's the alternative for a property owner to put a building up there? I mean, is there some other alternative they could do to make the drinking water good or what? I mean, what's,
Well, I can only, I'm not sure what, I'd have to look at the ordinance some more to see specifically what it says, but certainly one alternative would be for us to then, well, we have two alternatives. One, deny the subdivision because it can't meet the finding that it has to provide potable drinking water. Or two, we could require that Mr. Desmond provide each of the homeowners with a water treatment system for nitrate nitrogen. Now, I don't know what that treatment system is. I've never dealt with nitrate nitrogen contamination sites before, but it, certainly if it was bacteria, that's easy to solve with a chlorination unit or a UV treatment system.
okay, so those systems are out there available out in the market.
Yeah.
Okay, all right, thanks. That gives you, kind of clarifies things a little bit. Thank you.
And for anybody that's looking for where in the ordinance, we're on page 34 and 35.
Thank you. Thanks, George. And Pete, good question. It's good to know where we're going and what sort of the options are going forward, right?
All right.
Because it's
I
not,
just, like, I like to look at ways to get things done. So there's always, if there's a possible fix out there, let's consider this stuff, in a discussion.
Yeah.
That's the reason I brought it up.
absolutely, right, right. Right. Okay. Is it, I guess I'm asking the board too right now, are there more questions that we would have about this particular request for a waiver that we would want to just, and have more discussion on this right now? I'm asking the board.
You were asking us whether or not we should decide whether or not we're going to accept the waiver or deny the waiver. In other words, if we deny it, we're going to ask to have the applicant give us the assessments.
That's where I'm going in the end. If there are no,
Okay, let's, if you want an opinion, I can give you an opinion now where I'm thinking about,
yeah, go for it.
Listening to what's been presented so far, I'd like to see the assessment done for both of them.
Okay, thank you. Do other board members, are we sort of at a point, let me know. Is there more discussion needed or are we ready to make a motion on this? Hi, Mac.
So
talking about the whole wetland thing, on page 28, of the subdivision ordinance, it says, or page 28 and 29, it talks about land not suitable for development. And it says, certain lands, the following lands shall not be included in the calculations of the lot area for purpose of meeting the requirements of the minimum lot size law. And one of those is wetlands, basically. So I know we have more than the minimum lot size right now, but if you subtract that out, I don't know if we do. And I guess part of that, I know George had mentioned before, the delineation, or at least in his notes, the delineation of the wetlands wasn't exactly clear. I guess I'd like to know, I'd like to see that more clearly.
So Mac, you're talking about a different topic, right? It's related to this.
Yeah, it's related. I didn't know if you were just asking in general, because you're talking about a motion. I didn't know if you were doing a final motion. I didn't want to go there because I had this issue.
Thank you for bringing it up. I guess what I was looking at was, I'm thinking about this. I'll just say, very open and transparent about this. Should we make a motion on the request that Mr. Desmond has for the waiver for the hydrogeologic assessment part at this time? Or is more discussion needed?
And do I have an opportunity to state my case beyond what is in the letter that you guys have?
Yeah, please make your.
I guess with regards to the hydrogeological assessment, it seems like that's an expensive process. My understanding from the gentleman at Dirigo was that it's a $3,000 to $5,000 process, is what he told me. That's a lot of money to spend to subvert something that might happen. His assessment, and if you want to take Steve Brackett's assessment out of it, that's fine. But you also have Al Hodson, who's basically said the same thing. The lay of the land, and it's unlikely that this is going to happen in their opinion. That's all I can give you. I asked the gentleman from Dirigo to pen me something. Evidently, he just hasn't gotten around to it. So it just seems like a lot of money and a lot of expense to go through to subvert something that might happen and might not, in my opinion.
I do understand your position on that. I do. I totally understand. I just wanted to say it is part of our ordinance, though,
Yeah,
and so that's what we have to go by.
I understand that.
Yeah. So.
But also, as was pointed out by you guys in my very first meeting, I don't have to go through this process. There's other paths to developing this property. So in those paths, these things aren't required, is my understanding.
What
Yeah,
paths are we
you
talking
reduced
about?
it to two. Go ahead, Rich.
I was just wondering what kind of paths we were talking about.
Well, you guys had mentioned to me, I think it was George and some other folks at the first meeting, that one route around this without dealing with subdivision at all is to sell a lot and include the other lot with the sale of the house, or wait 5 years.
Mhm.
That's true. Those are things that would not trigger a subdivision ordinance review, which is what we're doing now.
Yeah.
Considering the limitation that George talked about and the wetland that would be subtracted from the size, I guess I can't tell you what to do, but the idea of creating a single lot may be the most
Oh, definitely be the easiest.
Yeah, easiest and may be create, create lots that are more suitable.
Well, I mean, again, we're speculating on that wetlands issue. I never questioned that because the gentleman that I hired to do this is pretty well known in the area. And I asked him to make me 3 legal building lots by Belgrade standards. So I have, unless somebody can prove me wrong, I have pretty good confidence that he's done that. But again, this is my first time going through this process, so.
Thanks. Go ahead, George.
Getting back to the waiver request, the specific waiver request for the hydrogeological investigation under section 10 or article 10, you know, I just would remind everybody, we have to make a decision based on what's been presented to us, and you know, we don't have a real solid argument showing that that a hydrogeological investigation is not, or that section of the ordinance is not required, or it wouldn't give us the answers that we need to be able to approve a subdivision.
Right. Right. Understood. So, yeah, that's part of the process of reviewing the subdivision application. And I know, Bill Desmond, you've talked about both in your notes and verbally to us that it can be very expensive, and I want to let you know we understand that, and it's not as though we just want to incur expenses. We do have to go by our ordinance, though, and that's where we are.
I guess I would just add, if I've worked with Pine Tree myself. In fact, I've hired them before, not for hydrogeological work, but for engineering work when I was working before I retired. But you know, if they or somebody of comparable qualifications provided a sound technical argument for why, in writing, why, you know, my assessment is in error based on the soil test pits, you know, I would defer to them for sure, but we don't have that.
Agreed. So I will let you know that at this point, my thinking is that the request for the waiver of the hydrogeologic assessment would not be passed, in my humble opinion, for me, as we look at this particular application. So I'd like to make sure to ask the board, from a process perspective, are we at a point where we would want to make a motion on whether or not to approve that request for a waiver, or are we not at a point to make that motion?
It's Peter Sargent speaking. I think we're at a point we can make a vote on it, and whether or not to approve the waiver or not. So then we can move on.
Thank you, Pete. I agree. George, I think I saw you.
Yeah, I'll make a motion that we deny the waiver request from for requiring a hydrogeological investigation.
Got a motion on the floor. I need a second.
Second it.
And seconded.
The question is, Craig on with us tonight?
I do not see him in attendance.
Okay.
Therefore, I guess we would look to you, Mr. Baker, for a vote. So we've got a motion on the floor and second. Any more discussion? All those in favor of the motion? I'll go roll call. So in my upper left, George,
Yes,
Mac,
Yes.
Rich,
Yes,
Pete,
Yes,
and I say yes. So that would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in favor, none opposed. So that is that aspect. Would it be okay to look at the other request for waiver at this time? That was for the stormwater, was it not? Stormwater plan.
yes,
And we know that, so Mr. Desmond, Mr. Hodgson, so, right? Al Hodgson wrote a letter, and this was what's part of this package that we have in front of us. And Mr. Hodgson states that the problem is that there is already a residential structure on the site. He says that so there'd be very little increase to the volume and rate of stormwater leaving the site. He states in his judgment, the front half of the lots will drain to the road ditch. The back parts of the lot drain to the wetlands in the back. He goes on to state the stormwater will continue to follow the culvert to the south of the lots. And he goes on then to say that a more elaborate analysis of the site is not justified. Anyway, that's his opinion. Hi, Rich, go ahead.
I just have a question, whether, not a stormwater expert here or whatever, but the fact that one of the lots is developed, how does that affect or make a difference of whether we need a study when we got 2 more lots that are going to be developed?
Yeah, it's a good question. I would think it would be very applicable to the ones that have yet to be developed, but that's just what I'm thinking. It'd be good to know if I were a potential homeowner. I would want to know, what's going on there. Go ahead, George.
I was thinking along the lines of, the reason this is before us is because 3 lots are being created out of 1. And so the lot with the existing home, the ordinance applies as much to it as it does to the 2 currently proposed undeveloped lots. And so if, for example, we chose not to grant this waiver, then, at least in my opinion, a stormwater management plan would have to include that middle lot, the lot with the existing home on it. If that makes any sense.
Yep, I think so.
Peter, when I was out there, basically my site visit verified what Al Hodgson's noted in terms of stormwater, particularly from lot 1 and part of the lot 2, which is the lot in the middle with the existing home. The back port, I mean, that land is flat as a pancake, basically, except where it drops off into the wetland and then the roadside ditch, the highway ditch. That's why on the site plan, there's no, the site plan requires 10-foot contours. There's no 10 feet in elevation change there. I'm not sure there's 2 feet of elevation change. But that aside for a moment, the other thing I noted though was there's no culvert underneath the driveway to the existing home. So consequently, any stormwater runoff from lot 1 and any home developed on it in the driveway and other impervious surfaces, along with much of the lawn area and part of the driveway from lot 2 where the existing home is. Anything that went towards the highway would never make it to the tributary to Messalonskee Lake. And that's what really is key here, because we're talking about the impact of stormwater carrying phosphorus to Messalonskee Lake. Everything on the back portions of all 3 lots and the side of the south side of lot 3 would go into the wetland. And on the abutting property in the back, I found a fairly good size pool, quarter acre anyway, that would essentially act as a stormwater retention pond. So the only stormwater I think that will reach that interim stream going to Messalonskee is from the Route 8 and 11 side of half of or portion abutting the roadside ditch on lot 3. And I think that would be minuscule. I actually am in favor of granting this request myself
Okay.
for those
Thanks
reasons.
for your observations, George, and for your notes
I
that
mean,
you,
It isn't that the stormwater won't be generated off the rooftops and the driveway. It's just that it won't reach that stream. For the
right,
most part.
right.
Thank you, George.
Can I just weigh in on this a little bit?
Absolutely, Pete.
Since George was there, I think we ought to give him a lot of credibility here as to what he just told us. So
Yep.
I would, be comfortable not, to grant the waiver on this particular issue.
Okay. And as George was talking about those things, I was also looking at, I was trying to find anything in the ordinance that we would want to point to. But at this point, I would tend to agree. It is a very flat area with built-in wetland to help out anything going to the or southwest, I guess it would be, kind of area. And I would trust what George has noted about this. Likelihood of water traveling from this area to Messalonskee Lake and transporting compounds of interest. I guess I would ask the board, are we ready to make a motion on either accepting the waiver request or are we not at that point yet?
I'll make a motion that we accept the waiver requests on the stormwater portion.
Okay, we have a motion to accept. Second,
I'll second it.
and Pete seconds. Any other discussion? All those in favor, we'll do a roll call. In my upper left, George,
Yes.
Mac,
No,
thank you. Rich,
Yes,
Pete,
Yes.
I vote yes. So that's 4 in favor, 1 opposed. So the waiver is okay. For this case, okay, there's that one. All right, back to the application packet. Where are we with that? We let's see. I'm looking to the board members too to help keep this straight. We want to find out if we have a complete package, correct? That's our goal tonight.
We don't without the hydrogeological assessment is my understanding. But it might be helpful to go through it to see if there's anything else.
Okay. So board members, help me out with this one. So if we have the application packet in front of us, we already know the hydrogeologic assessment is not present tonight. What's the board's feel on this, just going through this? I'd like to make sure to help out and address anything for Mr. Desmond so that he has all the information at his disposal that we would be asking of him.
Yeah, I'd say some, Pete. Yeah, we could make a quick run through. So, because we can't make a decision at this point, anyway, at this meeting.
Yep.
So, but we could run through it quickly and, keep that in mind and do it in 10 minutes maybe and give an idea, what something we do want, or are we, we're missing something or what? Can we do that, you think? That's my thought.
Let's try. Board members okay with that? Okay, so I'm looking at the application packet in front of me on page. It looks like the first page was filled out well. I don't think there's anything missing yet, right? We have the name of the property owner, the name of the applicant and address and all information. Indicates that this is a corporation. Number 4, the applicant's authorized information, that's there. Number 5, K&K information is there. Number 6, correspondence, that person is listed there. Going to the next page. If I'm going too quickly, let me know. I'm just trying to look for obvious gaps of anything that we may or may not have covered already. 7, what legal interest? You are the owner, Mr. Desmond. Number 8, what interest does the applicant have in any abutting property? You'd indicate that you have no interest in the abutting property. For land information, we are looking at book. We have information listed here. I'm assuming that's all accurate. 10, any within 250 of a high water mark of a pond, river, or stream, you said no. This we talked about before, and I think you've recalculated. Is that true, Mr. Desmond?
I'm sorry, what? What's the question?
The acreage to be developed, you now have 4.47 acres. Is that?
Yeah, I corrected the application based on the survey.
Yep. Thank you very much. 12, indicate the nature of restrictive covenants to be placed. You say there are none. 13, has the land been part of a prior approved subdivision? We said no, or it is indicated no. 14, the existing use of land, it says residential home. 15, does the parcel include any water bodies? You said no. 16, is the portion of the property within a special flood hazard? It says no. 17, list below the names and mailing addresses of abutting property owners and owners across the road. We have indicated here Joyce Hazlett and John Endicott, as well as their addresses. And is that complete? I guess I would.
No, there should be another page.
Right, so I'm on page, what I have in front of me, I have those 2 property owners listed, and I go to the next page, page 3, where there are other lines. And what I have in front of me does not have any names or addresses of other abutting owners.
I believe it's on a separate sheet, and you should have a copy of the 3 green cards for John Endicott, Lois Hazlett, and Bernice Tardif.
Okay, I may not have scrolled down far enough. I apologize.
No problem.
You find it, Peter? Because I got it.
As long as you have it, I'm good. You don't need to wait on me to scroll up and down. Continuing on, general information, number of lots within the units or units listed as 3. On my application, the next things have blank values here for anticipated date of construction or anticipated date of completion. I think that would still be true because there's already a structure on one lot. Is that right, Bill?
And I have no plan to build on either one of those lots at this time, so.
Understood. So that all makes sense. Perfect. 21, identify the method of water supply. You say individual wells. Identify method of sewage disposal. You say individual septic systems. Identify the method of fire protection. You say other, leave state alternative, and that would be the local fire department. After that, 24, if the applicant propose to dedicate to public any roads, recreation, or common lands, you had said no on those things. Number 25, does the applicant intend to request waivers? What's in front of me says no, but we know that was yes. We had the two issues that we talked about. One was approved, one was denied. Then submission plan, where we're talking about the sketch plan shall show and all these things. So what, do we have any gaps other than the requirement of having the hydrogeologic assessment that we've talked about so far? Go ahead, George.
From what I've heard so far tonight and my own questions, I have 3 questions regarding whether or not the site plan or the subdivision survey plan is complete. And we also have the wetland issue that Mac raised
Yes,
that we need to revisit.
yes.
Which sort of intersects with one of my observations when I was on the site, that being that the wetlands are take up more of the land area on the 3 lots than shown on the site drawing. But so I'll let Mac speak to that and deal with that issue. But I have 3 questions for you, Mr. Desmond, if I may.
Please.
On the site, on the drawing, at least the one I have, it doesn't appear that the internal lot lines have been surveyed, and I certainly didn't see any evidence of that other than some flagging. When I was out there, I didn't see any pins or anything of that nature. So I'm just wondering if those internal lot lines have been surveyed in, because on our drawing, we don't have any bearings or distances.
You should have full-size plans like this showing everything.
So that begs the question of what the 8.5 and by 11 that we have is different than what Mr. Desmond submitted.
Right. Yeah, that we learned that, I think, on the first meeting. You had these. And somehow they didn't get to you, I guess.
Okay.
I was told by Gary I needed these before I even showed up, so these have been there since day one.
Okay. And
So
that,
do we-
and the full-size drawings that you're showing, you have right there, that has that survey, those lines surveyed in with bearings and distances.
See if I can
The lot lines I'm asking
make this a
about
little more
are
manageable. Yes.
between the lot
Let's just say,
3 and 2 and 2 and 1. Oh, okay. Thank you. That answers that question. Thank you very much.
That does.
And this,
and that's why I think, I was a little confused by your comment about the wetlands. That's why I think, I do recall on that initial drawing, it didn't seem like there were much, but as you can see here,
okay. All right. That's more consistent with what I found when I was on site.
Yeah.
Than this. Probably what I have is basically your site sketch. Your initial site sketch.
I think
and,
that was the initial one.
I think so too,
a lot
George.
of this looks like it's hand drawn in. My apologies.
Nope, no problem.
And so that answers my second question. My third one has to do with on your quick claim deed. I noticed mention of an easement from 1948. Maybe that's shown on the full-size drawings that you have. I was just wondering if you could educate us on what that easement's for and where it's located.
I can try. My understanding was at some point in time, the previous owner of my house sold a 50-foot section to Mr. Endicott, I believe. That was never recorded. It was never approved by the mortgagee. So my understanding is that because of that, when I bought the property, that went away.
Oh, I see. Was that located sort of at the far southern extremity? Okay, on the other side of the intermittent stream?
Yes,
near where that
exactly.
Driveway is? Okay,
Essentially where that driveway is over there.
okay. All right, that answers that question. Thank you.
So George, just to back up for me and my notes, have we answered all your questions with this map, or is there?
You did, as it turns out. It just, I didn't have it, so.
Yep.
And I
I want to
apologize.
make
for
sure
not-
I didn't need to research something.
Yeah, I just didn't remember the issue that came up at our first meeting, that there were full set of drawings at the town office that weren't privy to, we being the board members.
Thank you, George, for those questions. And actually, I'd like to take a moment to go to Mac to get back to your question you had raised before, Mac, the one about the wetlands, which, as George points out, intersected with one of his questions. Do you have more things to ask at this time, Mac?
So I guess I would like to see it more clearly spelled out, the delineation of the wetlands, and then subtracting those wetlands. What does each lot look like in terms of size?
Beyond what the surveyor has done here on this one,
Is it on that big map? Well, yeah, is it there? I guess I would like to see it. I mean, as long as you're coming back anyway, I would like to see in the paperwork, in the subdivision application front, something that says each lot size.
that's on here.
Mr. Desmond, who is the surveyor on that big sheet?
K&K Land Surveyors. Burn
Okay.
pin.
Right, but I'm saying, does it with the wetland subtracted out?
I don't know this number here is with or without the wetlands subtracted out, to be quite frank with you.
Yeah.
I don't know that.
So I would agree that, from my perspective, I would agree with Mac that the application should be able to clearly state what's in, what's out, right? And show that. So that way it's clear, right?
Yeah, I guess I'd like to know how much is wetland and how much is not.
Exactly.
Yep.
George,
George has something, Pete, then we'll go to you.
Pete, go ahead.
okay, I think for the applicant's benefit, if we can point, determine, let him know the definition of a wetland, it's in the ordinance, and the surveyor, should, know that information as well, so that they can determine what a wetland is, so it'll be done correctly.
I suspect he has those numbers already. I don't know why they're not on here. If they're not required by the subdivision ordinance, he probably didn't put them on there, but I suspect, and you guys know as well as I do, he's done work all over this area, so I'd find it hard to believe he would create that lot knowing it was too small. So I suspect it'll just be a matter of a phone call to find out what those numbers are.
Go ahead, George.
So this actually sort of follows Mr. Desmond's comment, I think we need to take a step back and remember this is a minor subdivision, and we have the authority to require compliance with some of the standards in Article 10, if we so choose, this being one of them. But we need to make that decision consciously. We're sort of, I agree that I think we need to find out what the lot size is, or what the developable portion of the lot area is, minus the wetland. But I think we first need to make a conscious decision that we want to apply that portion of the ordinance, because it isn't listed on the 2 or 3 pages regarding minor, regarding a minor subdivision. But on page 13, in number 11, we do have that authority, and it reads, additional information may be required for minor subdivisions located in sensitive sites. And then it talks about salmon and McGrath ponds, but it also mentions including wetlands and wildlife habitats. For such subdivisions, the appropriate submissions and standards for major subdivisions may be required, and that's Article 10. And in this case, we're talking about Article 10.3. Land not suitable for development that Max cited earlier.
Thank you, George. That's good for us to be mindful and consistent in doing so.
Peter,
Yes.
just also in that land not suitable for development, number C says land which is part of a right of way or easement. And in the survey I see, lot 3 has a gravel road going down part of it. And is that a right of way or not? If it is, we should subtract that as well. Yes? No?
That's a good question. Boy, does that road exist?
It does.
Go ahead.
I had a question, it's Peter Sargent speaking. Question is, you mentioned, Mac, you mentioned the easement. I thought the easement was not valid because it wasn't recorded. So is the easement, you want to, is that road part of the easement or what? What's going on here?
I think it's different, Pete.
Okay,
If I'm not mistaken, when Mr. Desmond was talking about the easement, that was at a different area.
all right.
Am I right? And then the gravel road's at the southern end of, would it be is that lot 3? Did I do that right? Is it 1, 3? From north to south?
All right, I have to look back at my other stuff here.
So Pete, if I understood it right, if what Mac is looking to here, there's a gravel road indicated on what's in front of us, which is different than the easement discussion that we had before.
Oh, it's at a different location altogether.
That's what I understand.
All right, then I guess the other board is understanding it the same way.
Actually, I didn't.
Oh,
I
okay.
thought the road is located where the easement was proposed.
Oh,
I think George is correct, but I'm not trying to find my, I had something showing it here. I don't remember where it was.
so let's play this out for a second, just theoretically speaking. If the if the gravel road is the same as the easement, but the easement portion goes away, does that or does that not mean that a gravel road, which is in existence still, is undevelopable? That's the question I have. Because if Mac is talking about what was not suitable for development, and should it be subtracted?
Where does this road go? I mean, whose property is it on? It's,
Goes back to Mr. Endicott's property. I don't know what's down there. I've never been down there.
so is that road used?
I don't know that. I've never seen anybody use it, but it does not look overgrown or anything like that. So
No.
I'm gonna say somebody's going up and down there.
Yeah, it's actually in pretty good condition, actually.
Yeah.
Well, okay, yeah, if there is no legal easement, it never recorded that you as a property owner could say, okay, don't go across my property.
Good,
Don't,
but I wouldn't.
right? I'm just thinking about this legally. I'm not,
Yeah.
In the interest of saving everybody time tonight, I'll just have him do it without that gravel road in there. I suspect there's gonna be plenty left over, so let me start at that point in time, remove the wetlands and the undevelopable gravel road and see what's left. If I'm still within, great. If I'm not, we can come back for a discussion on that if we have to. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I would say just walking around there, lot 3 is the lot that's most in jeopardy of not being big enough.
For my purposes, I think that's a good first step. I'm not sure that fully completes the process. In other words, it seems like that gravel road is a gray area, and simply subtracting it, I'm not necessarily comfortable with. I would like to see the actual deed research. Is that an existing right of way? Because it may be greater than the gravel road. Maybe it's a 10-foot right of way, maybe it's a 50-foot right of way, but maybe it's only a 12-foot gravel road. I don't know. Does that make sense?
Yes.
George, can I just go back to your comment a second ago about lot 3?
Correct?
I guess I'm confused about how the wetlands on lot 1 and the road on lot 1 affect lot 3.
I'm sorry. No, I only meant that there's so much, it looked to me, just eyeballing it, that so much of lot 3 is in wetland. What's left may not conform with our minimum lot size ordinance.
Lot 3.
Yeah,
closest
the
to
one
Oakland.
to the south, the one closest, farthest away from Oakland.
Okay, that's lot 1.
Oh, okay.
Sorry, that's what was
I'm
confusing
sorry.
me.
Again, I was going by the map we had.
Yeah, I
And
understand. I just wanted to make sure we were all on the same page. So that is actually the
no.
largest lot. That's why, at least as far as I'm concerned, I'm not really concerned about having to, remove the wetlands and such, because I think there's still plenty there, because that's
Yeah.
almost 2 acres as it is.
Well, whatever the surveyor determines, I was eyeballing it.
Yep.
I apologize because my notes refer to lot numbers opposite of what's on the full drawing.
I kind of surmised that when I read them. I kind of remembered back to the first meeting that there was some confusion about that. So I
Yeah.
kind of thought maybe that's what was happening.
We got to make sure that we have the accurate drawing, in the future, Peter.
Yeah, no.
It's
True. So
well,
maybe
embarrassing.
between, I'm gonna turn to both Gary and Sheila. Can you work some magic so that when we revisit this, that we have in our package the same representation that Gary would have made to the town somehow? Please.
Would it be helpful for me to call K&K when I spoke with him, just to ask him to print out some more of these that are smaller? That seems to be the easiest.
I like that. If he can do that.
That would be fine with me if they're able to do that.
I'm just assuming he can.
Yeah, no,
I think, I'm sure he can, but I would wait until he actually gets a final plan and then.
Well, to be honest with you guys, these were my final plans. That's what I was told I needed to show up at the first meeting. So these plans, as far as I was concerned, you've got the Mylars, you've got everything.
Right, but I'm saying, in terms of what we've been talking about today, subtracting out or clearly delineating.
Oh, I see. You don't just want copies of these. You'd like it to show that as well.
Yeah,
I see what you're saying. Yep, sorry. We'll get copies after he figures that.
I think Vaughn can send digital copies of any of the maps that he does. He's done that before. So you can email him so that we can email them out to the rest of the board, because there's only 2 people that come in to pick up paper copies. Otherwise, everybody gets everything electronically.
Thanks, Sheila. That would be great if we could do that.
Yeah.
Okay, so getting back to the issue at hand, we wanted to look for things that might be missing or things that we would need to make an informed decision on the application. We've talked about a number of things. One, the hydrogeologic assessment. We talked about indicating things that both George and Mac have brought up relative to what's going on in lots 1, 2, and 3. Are there any other items that we need to point to so that Mr. Desmond has information to take with him on leaving us tonight?
just, I hate to beat a dead horse, but, there's another section in that land not suitable for development. And it says, land which has a water table within 10 inches of the surface.
Okay. Mac, do you mind telling me where you are in the ordinance?
Page 28 and 29.
Okay. So, Bill Desmond, we're looking at on page 28, section 10.3, paragraph D. Mac, am I on the same thing that you are?
Yes,
So what we're pointing to there, that's under something called land not suitable for development. So anything that's within 10 inches of the surface for at least 3 months of the year as identified by the county soil survey. That's what I think Mac's pointing to say that if there is such land, that would not be suitable for development. So if that exists on this, to show what that would be and subtract it. Mac, I don't want to speak for you. Am I on the right track?
yes.
I guess I'm confused. Do we know that that is the case with these lots based on the soil survey? With this,
I don't think we know that at this point, but it needs to be looked at, I think. Is that the issue?
I think so, yes.
how would one do that? Who would do that? A soils guy? Like Vern Hudson? I mean, Mr. Hudson, Al Hudson?
I'm guessing a soils guy, yes. So,
Wouldn't that be in the soils, the test pit analysis that he's already done?
right, but I think George brought up a point earlier about the test pits having issues, and then also where there's some discussion as to the wetland being more extensive than we originally thought. I just don't know if we should there be more test pits to actually show where it, because does the board think, I think there may be an issue where there may be points on this property where you are less than 10 inches. The water table is less than 10 inches.
Well, there certainly is in the wetlands, right?
Right, but how far does that go, I guess, is my question.
Go ahead, George.
I would just note that the soil test pit for lot 1 according to the correct drawings, shows modeling at 15 inches, which is what's used as an indicator of the groundwater, maximum high groundwater.
So,
So I guess that sort of raises an issue with me. 15 inches is pretty close to 10. It's not very deep, honestly. And that's lot 1, which is, so I guess I might be a little bit more comfortable seeing some more test pits showing the extent of the property, or at least further extent of the property. But if you guys think that's going too far,
yeah, Rich, go ahead, because I have a comment too. Rich?
I just had the way that paragraph is worded, for at least 3 months of the year as identified by the county soil survey.
Survey.
Is it possible that the county soil survey, that these things are on a map somewhere already?
You have a county soil survey for this area in the packet. I don't know that it shows that, but that's what I was asked to get.
It's possible that these maps are based on soil types, and one of the criteria for one of the soils is wet, or it's, 10 inches for 3 months of the year. I don't know. It's just a question. But because it talks about it as identified by the county soil survey.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was my thinking, Rich, that we'd be leaning on that information for what identified in the county soil survey, so.
Okay.
Go ahead, Pete.
I, I'm just thinking, if there was a part of the, area there that was less than 10 inches, let's say it was 9 inches or whatever, you did test pit and all that stuff, to remedy the situation, could the owner of the land bring in some fill and bring in more fill? It'll be costly, be a cost involved, but bring it up that is, you get it up to about, 12 inches, so you meet the guideline. Can you do that type of thing? You bring in fill?
no. You
No?
cannot do-
You can't do that?
No.
Who said-
You're saying fill in a wetland?
Well, what, no, I'm not saying fill the wetland in. Where Mac is getting at is doing test pits around along the property, someplace out more test pits, and you find out, oh, there is more wetland according to this definition, I guess, right? So at what point can you bring in fill and get the land up and make it less wet? But you put a house in there, you're gonna have to bring in some fill.
Yeah, no, you're right. You're right, Pete. I was thinking of something else. You're right. And I think you bring up a good point about the county soil survey. So maybe, Mr. Desmond, if you can just ask Mr. Hodson to clarify the county soil survey delineations, because it does clearly say that. So I don't think he has to do more test pits. It should be, I'm sure it does say on the soil survey, if it's less than 10 inches, then it's this soil.
Okay, but we have, I guess, my point is, we have a copy of that here. I'm not familiar with it, but I got it and brought it. Will that give us the information that we need?
I don't know. I don't have that in my packet.
I think potentially it could, though.
Right.
Well, I guess, yeah, it could, and it could just not say it. My
Right.
guess is if it doesn't say that there's an issue, is there an issue?
Let's go to George. You have something?
I was just gonna note that, so that's Ridgeberry soils according to the medium intensity soil mapping. And I looked at, they have a table that tells you in the Kennebec County soil survey, what the limitations are for that soil. And what it noted was poorly drained and has limitations for septic systems. But if you give me a minute, I can see if it says anything about depth to groundwater. I'm guessing it will not, because again, this is medium intensity mapping we're talking about. It's not site specific mapping. And you have to take it with a grain of salt when you apply to a very specific site. But if go ahead and give me a minute, and I have it right here.
Thank you, George. Yes, by all means. Thank you. Okay. And I guess I wanted to make sure to comment to Mac. Of course, what we have in our package and what we're looking at for the drawing about the delineated wetland is not as good as what Mr. Desmond has and what he's presented to the town in the large format. We're kind of at a disadvantage based on what we're seeing right now. What I'm hoping is that larger format diagram would indicate some things a little bit better, so that when used in combination with some of this information, other information, we could make a decision about it.
I agree, and I guess I just want to make sure that that large map or some map somewhere has the developable area clearly marked.
Right. That's the end game that we want. Hi, George. Did you find something?
Well, I'm not sure how much it helps, but this is mapped at Ridgeberry, very stony, fine, sandy loam. And it doesn't say anywhere, what you could expect for depth of groundwater. And I'm not surprised by that one bit. But they have a table called land use planning. And for RDA, Ridgeberry A, as I mentioned, for septic tank absorption fields, which is what they were called back in the day, moderately slow to slow permeability, high water table. Then if you go over to shallow excavations, as in a cellar hole, it says limitations severe, poorly drained. Talking about trenching, it's a limitation severe, high water table. It doesn't get any more specific than that.
Okay. Right. Thank you for looking at that.
But Mac's suggestion earlier for seeking an opinion from Al Hodgson may still have value, because based on his experience from doing the soil test pits, he may be able to infer, if it's likely that the groundwater table is 10 inches or shallower across broader portions of the site. I personally suspect the groundwater table is at the elevation of the wetland.
Right there.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you want to consider this, but as you're going through all these calculations or looking at things, you may want to also look at redesigning the subdivision. I know it's only 3 lots, but if you've discovered that it doesn't make sense the way it looks, it doesn't mean you can't do it. It just means you should reconfigure your lot lines, or you could, as a potential solution.
It's a good point.
Yeah, I just want to concur. That is a good point, Mac. So the applicant, take that into consideration.
If you guys could see what I have here, I don't know how we could change those and have it make sense and meet all the other criteria. Just looking at what I'm seeing for the minimum lot size and stuff. Lots 2 and 3 are relatively small to give lot 1 what it needs, and the house is already there. And then you have that circle deal that you have to have by the subdivision ordinance. I think changing the lot lines would be, we messed around with it a little bit when we were kind of figuring out where these were, and it kind of came down to this is where they were put to give lot 1 its best potential to be a good buildable lot.
As Mr. Desmond alluded to, he still has to meet the minimum lot size ordinance and the circle that's required,
Right,
so you don't have oddball shaped lots.
right. Okay. So I think what we're trying to get at is to know what's developable, right? That's why we're having this discussion. So in other words, to subtract what is not suitable for development on specifically, and Mr. Desmond, I want to reference the right lot number 1, correct?
Correct.
It's got the most stuff going on.
Concerns, yeah.
Go ahead, George.
One other way to skin this cat, possibly, Mr. Desmond, I don't know what Mac thinks about this, but I've seen it done many times, is we have a soil test pit, and what that reveals to us. A lot of times soil scientists, what they'll do is to see how applicable what they found in that soil test pit is to the rest of a parcel of land. Will use a soil auger, a hand soil auger, and look for modeling. And that could be done in a couple of hours. You might ask Al Hodgson about that as a quick and cheap, more cost-effective way of determining whether, particularly on lot 1, which is the lot I'm most concerned about, whether, the groundwater table remains at 15 inches across the entire expanse of the lot, or if there are areas that are 10 inches or less. I think that would be Al might disagree with me, but I think that would be a relatively inexpensive way to do it.
Does anybody have any input as to how much of an area or how many of these samples you'd
Well,
like to see done?
No, I personally would defer to Al Hodgson's judgment.
Yep.
I'm not prepared to dictate something of that kind of minutia.
Right. Same. I agree.
Yeah, I agree. I guess I'm not saying I'm the expert and I can say what needs to be done. Rather, I'm saying the ordinance tells me the applicant needs to prove to me that certain standards can be met. And right now, it has not been proven to me that those standards are met. I can't tell you how to prove them, but I think Al Hodgson could.
Yep.
Does that make sense?
It would be a planned approach to provide, hopefully to provide sufficient information so that the planning board could say, understand what you're presenting, we either agree or disagree, and then make a decision.
Right.
Yeah, Mac summed it up quite nicely.
Yep. All right. So based on all that, I think there's some take-home stuff for the applicant in this case, and I would say that we do not have sufficient information yet to make a decision on this. How does the board feel at this point about this condition? Mac, you raised your hand?
Yeah, this is kind of going back to the waivers, right? Because you guys voted to grant a waiver. Page 47 of the ordinance has a section on waivers, and it says, where the board makes written finding of fact that there are special circumstances, blah, 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 it can grant a waiver. So I don't know if you do that findings of fact now or at the end when you're actually reviewing and determining that it is a complete application. But my reading says you need a findings of fact.
Can I interject for just a second here? I'm getting a little confused about what constitutes a completed application. If I read the subdivision ordinance and I provide you with all those things, does that or does that not, over and above what you ask for later? I think this, for me at least, this process is getting a little confusing because we're asking for some other things before I have given you what the ordinance would consider a completed application. So by my understanding right now, and please correct me if I'm wrong, what we're waiting for a completed application is the hydrogeological assessment. If I understand that correctly, that completes my application. And then these other things that we've talked about obviously need to be done before a decision is made. Is that correct or not correct?
In my opinion, I would say you are correct.
I disagree. Because George made a point earlier that in the submission requirements, number 11 says additional information may be required for minor subdivisions. And that's what we're requiring. But that is part of the actual submission requirement. It says to be a complete application, you need to do these 12 things. And number 11 is we can actually require additional pieces to that.
I agree with Mac.
Yeah, I do too. No, I retract my,
That's fine. I just want to understand the process here is all.
Yeah.
and we don't do it every day. So bear with us as we get through it.
Peter, on Mac's earlier point about the section of the ordinance that deals with waivers and the finding of fact, I again agree that, and it's in multiple places in the ordinance that we need to do findings of fact, written findings of fact, before making our final decision. I had rightly, or I don't know what the right answer is to Mac's question. When I had read that earlier today, I was thinking it meant at the point in time that we make a decision about the subdivision, but I can't tell from just reading that.
Yeah, I think that's a sort of process. You know, I think either way, as long as we do it.
Mm-hmm. I'm glad you brought it up, Mac. It's a very good point. Sure. I guess I'd be leaning towards probably doing it at the point of making a decision about the subdivision or not, to do it at that time. So I don't want to overlook it.
Peter, that leads me to a question I was going to ask. Maybe this is a little premature, but does the town have a form that we're going to be using when we get to that stage? And I, one that's been around for a while, I mean.
I think that's a sort of process, you know, I think either way, as long as we do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, great question.
I mean, maybe that's a question for Gary, but,
It is, because my thinking is, I'm not trying to be cynical, but I think we don't. It would be good to buy that.
that's my fear.
Yeah. So, let's see, Gary, I don't know if you can hear us, but could you chime in just for a second?
I can hear you. Yeah.
Okay, super. So what we're looking for here is to know if the town has a form for findings of fact for a waiver for a subdivision application.
Or our final approval of the subdivision in its entirety.
I thought we did, but I guess I'd have to look. I'm not sure. I think we
Would you
do.
mind, would you mind checking into that?
Yeah, I'll talk to Sheila tomorrow.
Okay, thanks so
So
much.
it's a finding of fact for subdivision approval?
Correct.
Okay, let me ask Sheila tomorrow.
Okay,
Or actually, Sheila's on here right now.
she is.
Sheila, do you,
I'm not sure.
Sheila, do you know?
I'm not familiar with that form, so I'm going to have to look. I don't know.
Okay, so it's
I know we
finding,
have a commercial. I know we have a commercial one.
right?
And we did that, the shoreline zoning one, but I don't know.
I'm
Okay.
not sure that's a fair.
But we can find out.
Maybe in
We'll
town.
find out
office.
tomorrow. Me
we'll
and you
find
will
out.
do this together tomorrow.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you both. Mac, did you have your hand up or were you about to? No? Okay. All right, thank you. All right, so where are we with this? We know that there's more is needed for us to make a decision. That's my belief. And Mr. Desmond, have we answered your questions about what would be needed?
I think so.
Okay.
Mr. Desmond, you're pretty soon, you're gonna have to give us your mailing address so we can exchange Christmas cards.
Right. I'll have that house done first. You guys can come by for the housewarming party after COVID.
Yeah.
Thanks. You're good. Oh, you've been very patient. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you. So you're done with me?
I think so. I just want to make sure to ask the board. I think I would want to know, do we want to make a decision to officially table this until more information is submitted or something along those lines?
Yes,
If so, I would entertain a motion to do so.
I'll make a motion to table the subdivision until the additional information submitted.
Motion on the floor,
Second it.
seconded. Thank you so much. Any more discussion? Okay. All those in favor, I'll do a roll call. For upper left, George,
Yes,
Mac,
Yes.
Rich,
Yes.
Pete,
Yes.
I say yes. 5 in favor, none opposed, tabled. Bill Desmond, thank you again for all your patience as we go through. Really appreciate that.
Thank you guys for your time, and I'll see you next time.
Okay, thank you, sir. Have a good night.
Appreciate it. You too.
Okay, thank you, everybody. Really appreciate that. A lot to go through. Okay, the next item on our agenda for old business, we have a shoreland application. The applicant is the HT Winters, Mark Winters, owner Cheryl and Ralph Vintner, located at 37 Pickerel Lane, map 36, lot 14, on Great Pond. This is a non-conforming lot. They wanted to convert an existing second floor cape to a full second floor on the same footprint. Hi, Mark.
Good evening.
Good evening. Thanks for your patience.
No problem.
Okay. This is the. Okay. Does everybody have the application in front of them?
Mhm.
Yes,
And we have a letter from the Vintners asking to allow Mark Winters to represent and speak for the Vintners for this application. It does, it says on November 5th, but I'm thinking that probably goes forward. Is that true? Not just limited to on the 5th.
This is the Vintner family. Yes. You canceled the last meeting, so that was for the last meeting. And
Okay.
you rescheduled.
All right, thank you. All right, so we have the application in front of us here, and when we had gone through this before with Mr. Winters. We had some things we talked to him about, right?
Peter, I don't know if this would help, but according to my notes, there were 3 items that we needed information about. One was a side view of the proposed structure showing its maximum height, which has been submitted. The letter of authorization, which has been submitted. And the third was to complete the blanks on the application form that Mac had noted.
Right.
Those are the 3 things my notes had.
Yep. Excellent. So we have, and that's what's in front of us now.
Yeah.
So I'm looking at the edited version, I think, is highlighted in yellow, and there's more information on the application. Is everybody seeing that same one?
Yeah, and some of the numbers have changed. Total lot area is 0.197, whereas the other one said 1.3.
Correct.
Okay. All right. So going through this, number 5 was the first one where more explicit information was supplied, which is to say it's replacing 1 bedroom with bathroom, right? Under proposed construction or change in use. Number 6 was the next, I think, blank that we needed some information. Yeah, some comparing. It says existing sewage disposal system type and capacity unknown. Is that the case? There's no known disposal system?
I think capacity is the question. There's obviously a system. I don't know how I get the capacity. I will find out if someone informs me how I get capacity, I'll do so.
Is Gary available to answer that question? He's the code, the
I'm
plumbing
looking at it
inspector.
right now. I thought we had a copy of the septic design. Septic design was designed for 3 bedrooms. And the original application said -1. Okay. Let me look through my paperwork. I guess I don't have the actual copy of the original septic system. But here the issue is, they're reducing it from 1 bedroom, from 3 bedrooms down to 2 bedrooms. So I don't think that's a concern.
Makes sense.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That shouldn't be a concern.
Peter,
Go ahead, Mac.
on one level, I totally agree with you, Gary. You're reducing it And septic systems are based on bedrooms,
That's right.
so it shouldn't be a concern because you're reducing, right? But
Yeah. Right.
so I can totally see that argument.
Yeah.
But I think there's another argument to be made that says, how can I approve of any development when I have no idea what the septic system is? I know you just said you think it's for 3, but I don't have the official paperwork in front of me.
And I don't have it either because I don't know how old it is, Matt.
But
I don't know. I don't know
but-
how old it is.
But that should be part of the application.
I know,
That's
but if that record is not available, then I don't have it. I don't have it.
Can I just chime in for a second on this? This is Peter Sargent speaking.
Yes,
Gary, could Mac a little bit new to the board, and could you give Gary, could you give Mac a little history on the code enforcement officer that you inherited, the plumbing inspector's job and some
Well,
of
the thing is, I
records
don't
weren't
know.
available.
I don't know how old this septic system is.
Right.
Okay. But I know that going back to 1974, the minimum septic system design was for a 2-bedroom home. Okay. And this application says they have a present 3-bedroom home and they're deducting 1 bedroom. So if that's the case, the septic system that's existing in the ground should be for a 2-bedroom design, which should be adequate.
Right, and I think we don't have any paper, the town doesn't have any paperwork on the septic system because
I
prior-
couldn't find any because it's probably an older system.
yeah, and I think, as I remember, the reason you can't find it because the prior plumbing inspector, the records aren't available, in the transition from the prior plumbing inspector to you, a lot of the records
Exactly.
weren't available.
Exactly right.
Oh, yeah,
Exactly right.
That
Yep.
needs to be explained to Mac, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mhm.
Thank you.
so George, go ahead.
So the ordinance provides for this contingency on page 63. If no plumbing permit is submitted with the application, the applicant shall submit a statement from the local plumbing inspector that the existing subsurface wastewater disposal facility is approved for the proposed land use.
Well, I'm not willing to do that. He'd have to have it inspected by a state certified inspector. Because I don't know what's in the ground.
So to me, that makes sense, Gary. And that probably also supports even more what Mac is talking about,
Yeah, that's fine.
right?
That's fine. Well, maybe he needs to have the septic inspected by a certified state licensed inspector. And have something in writing that says that the septic is adequate for what he wants to do. But I mean, he's deducting a bedroom. He's not adding a bedroom. He's not adding a bedroom. He's deducting one.
Yeah, understood.
See what I mean?
Yep. I know. Go ahead, George.
A question for you, Gary. Is this new ground for us? I don't recall this coming up before on any application since I've been on the board. Have we always had the historical plumbing, the permit that you issued or your predecessor issued, or?
No, because there's no permit required because all he's doing is raising the roof. He's not adding bedrooms or anything like that. So
Right,
there's
so-
no reason to expand the septic system.
I'm just concerned that we're setting a precedent here and we're not being consistent with our past practices. My recollection, and I'm perfectly willing to be corrected is that on existing systems that don't need to be expanded, aren't being constructed new.
Right.
We've used the number of bedrooms as as a surrogate measure of adequate capacity.
Exactly right. No, I agree 100%. But when somebody comes in and says, I have a 3-bedroom home and I'm reducing it to a 2-bedroom home, then I have no reason to ask them to expand their septic system or even show me what they have for a septic system.
I mean, the ordinance doesn't, under this circumstance, call for an inspection.
No,
Nor
I know
does-
it doesn't, because the property's not transferring hands.
Right.
Right.
So I'm just struggling with this. You know, in terms of what authority do we have to require some kind of assessment of the capacity
Yeah.
at this
I don't
point?
think you have, truthfully, I don't think you have any.
I'm any worse.
The minimum septic design is for a 2-bedroom home.
Yeah. I'm on a Zoom meeting right
So
now.
I'm assuming that this 3-bedroom
Yeah.
home
Nothing's
has a
happening.
septic design for a
What
3-bedroom
happens
home,
tomorrow?
and he's deducting a bedroom.
Yeah.
So I have no reason to question
Oh,
what's in the
Pardon me?
ground for a septic system.
yeah, and they said drink water and keep yourself hydrated and
Go ahead, Mac.
sleep. So,
Well,
Pete, you're on, you're not on mute.
okay, hold on. I gotta go to the meeting. Right, bye. All right, I gotta. Yeah, I'm here. I'm here. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, you're not on mute. So Mac had a question, so go ahead.
no, Gary, I totally understand what you're saying, and on some level, I agree with that, but you also said, Gary, that you're not willing to sign off to certify that what's in the ground is valid. And if you're not willing to sign off on that, then why should we be willing to sign off on that?
I'm not a certified state inspector for a septic system. When you put a new septic system in, I go inspect it, I sign off, and it's buried. I can't tell you what's in the ground for a septic system. My only suggestion to you is it has to be at least designed for a 2-bedroom home. And when they're done with this, raising the roof of this property, it's going to be a 2-bedroom home.
You said past 1974, right?
Correct.
When was the house built? When was it installed? The
I
septic-
don't know that. Maybe Mark can help you with that. I don't know. I'm not sure.
Well, Cheryl is listening. Are you there, Cheryl?
Yes. Oh,
Can you answer that question? When the septic system, when the house was built?
I don't know that, Mark, this is Ralph Fenton, not Cheryl. I've been here for 25 years. So my understanding was the whole time I've owned this house was that the septic system was rated for 3 bedrooms. Three bedrooms. They've told me right along that it was 3 bedrooms. That I couldn't add it because I had a family. I had a family of 5 kids. Well, three children, and me and my late wife were living here, and we lived here, and she's passed, and the kids have moved out. But all I'm saying is all I'm asking for is to eliminate a bedroom, add a bath upstairs.
Right, and I guess that goes back to my point about Gary, that on that level, I agree, we're reducing bedrooms. So on that level, it should be simple. We're reducing bedrooms. Why you keep questioning this, Mac? And so on that level, I'm like, yeah, I'm just pounding my head against a brick wall or something,
No, and here's the answer. If somebody has an existing septic system and they're going to eliminate a bedroom, I have no right to ask them to prove to me what they have for a septic or to prove to me that they have to expand their septic because they're reducing the number of gallons per day that are going into the ground.
I understand where Gary's coming from. He's got a house, a legal house. We don't know that the septic system is bad or that it doesn't meet standards. And they're reducing the size of the number of bedrooms. I'm not sure where we can conclude that something has to be done with the septic system.
I don't think you can. I don't think you can.
If I may weigh in here too, I agree with what Gary is saying right now. Not that I know every aspect of the ordinance, but I'm not seeing where we would have the authority to do so in this case.
I agree with you.
And, you
I
know,
mean, I can definitely see that. It gives me pause, great pause, to know that this is a non-conforming lot, and the application says we have no idea what's under the ground. The landowner says we have no idea what's under the ground. The CEO says we have no idea what's under the ground. The construction guy has no idea. Like, yes, we're reducing, and so it should be okay. It's working for 3 right now. We're going to reduce to 2, so it should be working perfectly fine. And I totally see that argument. But on the other hand, I'm just like, wait a minute, this is a non-conforming lot. I'm going to sign off on an application. It doesn't matter what's going on. They are doing something. And on that piece of land, we have no idea what's under the ground.
I
That doesn't make
understand,
sense.
Mac, but there's no evidence of a septic malfunction. There's no sewage puking out on the ground. There's nothing that shows. And we're reducing the number of bedrooms. I can't force him to have a septic inspection, and I can't force him to put a new septic system in. Unless there's total evidence that there's a problem with the one that he has.
yep.
Peter,
George,
can I chime in?
Again, another question for Gary, if you don't mind, Gary. You kind of touched on this. You said there's no evidence of a malfunction. Have you actually been to the site?
I have.
Okay, because
Yeah.
you know, I only in the ordinance I only see 2 circumstances that this board has the authority to, as part of the application, require the a copy of the plumbing permit. One is if there's new construction or an expansion that would trigger the need for an expanded or new septic system. And the second is if there's a malfunction.
Exactly right.
We have neither of those in this case. So
Exactly right.
I don't see where we have the authority that,
Exactly.
I mean, I understand where Mac's coming from logically, but you know, I don't see where we have the authority to require more information on this beyond what's on the application page.
You don't. You're exactly right.
Well, I'm definitely, I am being moved by y'all's arguments. I'll say that. But can I just end by pleading with the lot owner to please do something? You live 50 feet away from a water body. I don't know what kind of vegetation you have between your septic system and the water body, but it's really incumbent on you in terms of water quality to at least know what you have under the ground. And I'll stop there. I'm sorry.
thanks, Mac.
This is Ralph Vincennes, the homeowner. The only thing I've ever known was a septic system was rated for a 3-bedroom house. Other than that, I don't know what's under the ground. I'm not a septic specialist. You're correct. But I've always been told that this was rated for a 3-bedroom home. That's all. And I'm done speaking. Thank you.
Thank you. Pete, go ahead.
Yeah, just following up with Max asking to have done. How much does it cost to have a system inspected, by, inspector? Gary, you might know that. The homeowner may want to know that too.
I don't know, but it doesn't matter. If it's
I
not a
know it-
requirement, if it's not a requirement, why does the owner have to pay $400 or $500 to have his septic system inspected? It's
Well, no,
it's not a
I
requirement, Peter.
yeah, I'm not making require. Mac was just asking, if he would do it, consider doing it. It's not a requirement, but I'd like to know
It's
too, how much would it
probably
cost? You
$400 or $500.
mentioned $300 or $400. That's a good figure to, okay, fine.
But I can't ask him to do that because it's not a requirement.
Mac's not asking you to do that, and I'm not asking you that, but I just want to know if it was done, how much would it cost?
$400 or $500.
Okay, thanks.
Okay.
Pete, I have to step away from the meeting for a few minutes. I'll be back.
Okay, thanks, Rich. Let's move on to the next item that had been blank. Also in 6, where it says, when did you purchase the property in the shoreline zone? This says May of 2003. Number 7, another value that was placed that was not present before. Total lot area, 0.197 acres. And the lot area within the shoreline zone says 0.197 acres. Number 8, the square footage of unvegetated surface within the shoreline zone, including all structures, driveways, parkways, walkways, all that. The calculation looks like it's at 3,310 square feet. 9, what is the total area of cleared openings of woody vegetation? 3,100 square feet estimate. Number 10, another value that was presented, total number of structures on lots, says 3. Then going down into, it says present structure square footage 2,084, proposed square footage same. And I think that completes that which was blank before, that we have asked the applicants to either edit or supply. I think they've done that. Then going back to what George brought up, notes before, having a sketch plan that was submitted, and then I'm going to say a profile view showing roof height or plans.
Yeah, it's a profile view or side view, which we have
That is-
now. It's a marked up drawing.
Yep.
Marked
Okay.
up photo.
Yep. Okay, so I would ask the board, do we have the information that we would need to proceed at this point?
I think we do. Peter speaking.
Thanks, Pete. George, you okay with that?
I agree.
Okay, Mac, you okay? Great. Based on that, what questions do we have for the applicant at this time? Or what questions do we have about this application? Do we have? According to this, we're looking at a very shallow pitch from the new roof line, a 212 pitch.
Peter, the only question I have for either Ralph or Mr. Winters is, the photo shows along the drip edge of the roof. And because I have a black and white photo, I can't quite tell what it is, but at the base, I can't tell if that's like a drip edge infiltration trench or if that's bark or garden. And I only ask because of whether or not we'll need to require stormwater best management practices.
Sure. So you're looking for Mark to supply that information?
Mark or Ralph Vintner.
Mine's a colored photo and it shows, I would say, bark and landscaped area, but I think that's probably more in Ralph's ballpark than mine.
Hey, Mark, it's Ralph. It's on the call. Just around the house, I put some 4x4, I don't know what you want to call it, landscaping posts around here, and I put back around the house, and I've done it on both sides, and every now and then we might put a little flower in there, or we may not, but we just do it for color.
Ralph, this is George Seal again. The only reason I'm asking is we have a provision in the ordinance that requires when roofs are altered or we get new buildings or whatever, but in your case, an alteration like this, that the runoff from the roof be intercepted before it reaches the lake. And I'm just trying to assess whether in essence, that bark mulch serves as an infiltration area such that the water, rather than running off, goes into the bark and infiltrates into the ground.
Yep, I've never had a puddle anywheres around it ever. It just I don't even know if it hits it because it's so close to the house, George, that I don't know that it does hit it. It runs off the roof, and I've never seen it in the mulch, but if it does hit the mulch, I've never had a puddling anywheres.
All right, thank you, Ralph.
You're welcome.
Any other questions about this application? I think in the past, we wanted to know about the roof height and all that sort of stuff. And I think it was explained it's not going to get any taller than what it is now, right? The applicants have supplied a change in the pitch. We've, I think, received some information about what happens with a water runoff currently. And based on that information, we may want to have a condition. I don't know. But other than that, do we have any other questions about this application? None. Okay. In that case, I would entertain a motion on this application. Just one second. There's no construction taking place. I mean, no earth movement, right? It's just.
Correct. No earthwork at all.
Okay. I only ask that because in an application for a permit in the shoreline zone, if there is earth movement, we would want to have a certified contractor number, but that's not something here. All right. So anyway, I probably went on too long about that, but I would entertain a motion on this.
Procedurally, Peter, shouldn't we go through the findings of fact first?
Oh, yes. Yes, we do need to. I've got the fillable form. Hang on. Thank you, Sheila, again. The applicant. The applicant is the Vintner, or is it Ralph and Cheryl?
Maybe we should explain for Mark Winters and the Vintners benefit what we're doing.
Yeah, please do. We can do this. So we have a findings of fact that we will act upon that requires us to go through some things. And we're filling this out as we go along. So that requires me to be typing that as we go along, which means it takes a little bit of time. So please bear with me as we do so. This has to do with findings of fact and conclusions of law based on our shoreline zoning ordinance. It shouldn't take too long, but we'll be right with you. Just 1 second.
Peter,
Pickerel Lane.
Peter, don't we have to vote that it's a complete application first?
I don't know. We will at some point. Procedurally, do we want to do that first before we go to findings of fact?
Yeah, we do.
Okay. So would you like to make a motion that we either have a complete, or how would you like to do that? Or
So I make a motion that this application is complete.
okay, we have a motion on the floor. Do we have a second?
Second it.
Thank you. George, do you have a comment?
Do we have a complete application if we don't have a stormwater management plan? Or should the motion be amended that we have a complete application minus a stormwater management plan, which will be addressed through a condition?
Hmm. I like that, but Mac, you made the motion. How do you feel about that?
Talk to me about the stormwater management plan, George.
I'm sorry?
I'd like more discussion on the stormwater management plan.
So one of the performance standards is for a submission of a managing stormwater by submission of a stormwater management plan. We've historically we've probably seen one or two of those since I've been on the board. So we've dealt with it through a condition that cites that standard in the ordinance and the DEP best management practices it relies upon as a condition of their approval.
Right. So you're saying, yeah, we require that for all the applications. That's just one of the conditions.
Right, yeah, it's almost like a standard condition.
Yeah, exactly. So that's fine, like, if we do that. So you're saying that the determination that the application is complete should specify that we are waiving the requirement of a stormwater management plan? Because I don't think we've ever done that.
No, we haven't. We've I guess the way I would state it is that we have a complete application except for the stormwater management plan, which will be addressed by condition.
You follow that, Mac?
Okay, well, Sheila, if you somehow, or Gary or Peter, whoever's taking notes here, if you somehow understood that, I am happy to modify my motion to what George said.
Thank you. Sheila, you okay with that? So Mac had a motion and then it was seconded. Then we had a discussion about an amendment to the motion to include a phrase such as, and I don't want to speak for George, so I just turn it back to you if you don't mind, George.
Oh, complete application with the except for a stormwater management plan, which will be addressed via a condition.
So do you want a motion and then a friendly amendment to the motion?
Yeah, that, basically, that's what I'm suggesting is amendment to the motion,
Okay. That sounds
If-
good.
if that's acceptable to Mac.
Yes, good suggestion, Sheila.
And when
Good.
I send you the minutes, you can just check those motions to make sure that they're acceptable.
Okay.
Certainly.
So we've got a motion on the floor. It's been seconded. We've had more discussion, which resulted in an amendment. I think,
Need a second of the amended motion.
okay, do we have a second of the amended motion?
I'll
Pete.
second it. I'll second it.
Good man,
It's been
Pete.
seconded. Do we have any more discussion on this amended motion? So all those in favor, this will result in us deciding that it's complete less the stormwater management plan, which will be addressed through condition. George,
Yes.
thank you. Pete,
Yes.
Mac, I know you're muted,
Yes,
and I say yes, so that's 4 in favor, none opposed. Let's move ahead. So with that, are we okay to go to the conclusions? Findings of fact, conclusions of law. So I've typed in the applicant name, Ralph and Cheryl Vintner, address 37 Pickerel Lane, Belgrade, Maine, tax map and lot 3614. Findings of fact, the applicants on date applied for shoreline permit. I think what it is to, this is what they're doing, which is to what we said was to replacing one bedroom with one bathroom.
Wouldn't that be just the same as what's in item 5 of the application, Peter?
Probably, but of course it's a PDF, so I can't copy and paste. So
Oh.
I'm trying to do that as best I can quickly. The application was presented to the planning board on, what was the date we first heard this? Was that?
Two weeks ago.
Thanks, Mark. Yeah, what date? I need help.
I'm looking.
November 19th.
Thank you. That's all good. Now that's under findings of fact. And now conclusions of law based upon the application materials, testimony, statements and evidence, documents and other materials submitted to it, and the above findings of fact, the Belgrade Planning Board finds that the project is or is not a permitted use under section 14, table 1 in the ordinance. And further makes the following conclusions based on the applicable provision 16D of the ordinance. So I'm thinking, once we go through this, we can say it either is or it is not permitted. So I guess I would suggest that I not say those words until we go through the findings of fact, if the board's okay with that. All
Why
right,
can't we do it now? Just do it is. Oh, okay, the conclusion. Okay, sorry.
right?
Yeah, you're right.
Don't want to
All
put the
right.
cart before the horse, Pete.
You're right. Yep.
Okay, number 1, and Mark Winters and the Vintners, please bear with us. This is the first time really we're officially going through this in this way with this template. So we'll maintain safe and healthful conditions. So was this standard met? So,
Yes.
well, the way this is presented, I just want to make sure I read this to you. There are the 8 things on page 66 of our ordinance that are listed here. And I think we're going to be voting on each one of these things, right? So the safe and healthful conditions, was it or was it not met? So if we phrase it was and then vote, I can list what that number is. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
So if we say it by a vote of whatever, the board found that this standard was met. So voting, George,
Yes.
Mac,
Yes.
Rich,
Yes,
Pete,
Yes.
and I say yes. So 5-0 that the standard was met. Number 2, that it will not result in water pollution, erosion, or sedimentation to surface waters. By a vote of whatever, the board found that this standard was or was not met. So it was met. So George,
Yes.
Mac,
Yes.
Rich,
yes,
Pete,
Yes.
and I say yes. So 5 in favor, none opposed. It's interesting. Just 1 second. I'm sorry. I have a question about procedure. The fillable form after these statements. So for example, with number 1, by a vote of 5-0, the board found this standard was met based on, then it's fillable at that point. So are we saying submission or material submitted? Would that be appropriate language to put in these cases? I'm looking for advice. This is the first time we've ever done this before this way.
I think that would be acceptable, Peter, other than in cases or instances where, we've had a lengthier discussion or, there's more complexity to that particular finding.
Okay.
Can I say? Sorry, George, were you done?
I'm done, yes.
I agree with that, and I think that's a great answer. And I think number 3 will show you where we go beyond that. But if not, for cases like number 3, I think leaving it like that is just for simple, whatever. You know what I'm trying to say.
Yep. Simplicity.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah. Sort of our default.
Exactly.
So-
Exactly.
All right. So that's a good point, Max. So I think we're on to now 3, right? Which is will adequately provide for the disposal of all wastewater. And it says by a vote of the board found that this standard was not met based on. So I think we should vote on this, and I think we'll have more robust discussion or some things to submit for the fillable form part, right?
Exactly.
I think I know where you're going, Mac, with some words I'm anticipating that I would want to use too. So,
Okay.
all right. So, that it was met. So phrasing it that way. So George,
Yes.
Mac,
Yes.
Rich,
yes,
Pete,
Yes.
and I say yes. So I'm putting that minimal wording down, but I know we want to say more. And I'm thinking we want to reference the historical aspect of what we talked.
Hold on. Peter, I would not put that minimal wording because I don't think they submitted anything that would demonstrate that.
Okay, good point. So what's a better way to phrase it so that we're complete in what we're saying?
I think what you were about to say.
So something like historical I know I'm kind of getting hung up on it, I guess, and maybe making it more difficult than it needs to be, but something like, I don't want to say historical evidence, but historical records predating 1974 or something like that. I don't know. I'm kind of fumbling on this.
Let me throw something out and then
Sure.
you guys can refine it maybe or improve on it. So, property, what's the context of this? Could you just read that again, Peter?
Sure, this is about the wastewater, disposal of wastewater. So-
Right, and is there something that is a prelude to what I have to compose here?
I think the prelude was all the discussion we had before with the fact that the wastewater system was put in a long time ago, and as far as the owners had,
Okay, so, property has, existing wastewater disposal system. No new or expanded system is required by project. And site inspection by plumbing inspector found no evidence of malfunctioning system.
I think that probably can work. Do you mind saying it one more time? I said, as it has existing system, no requirement for new system.
New or expanded system. Due to reduction in bedrooms. That's a critical piece I missed.
Due to a reduction in number of bedrooms.
Correct. And site inspection by plumbing inspector found no evidence of malfunction.
May I read it back to you as I've written it so far? So we can-
Sure.
So I wrote down 5-0, property has existing system. No requirement for new or expanded system due to reduction in number of bedrooms. Should I say proposed reduction?
Yes.
Proposed reduction in number of bedrooms. Site inspection by plumbing inspector found no evidence of malfunction. Does that capture what we were thinking about and had for a discussion adequately?
I think so.
Thanks, Pete. Mac?
Can you read it one more time?
Absolutely. I wrote down 5-0 as existing system. No requirement for new or expanded system due to proposed reduction in number of bedrooms. And site inspection by plumbing inspector found no evidence of malfunction.
I'm good.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. This is really good to be going through this because I think we're going to be setting some new standards as we go forward. So this is helpful. Then moving on.
Just one more thing. Gary, did you have anything that you thought we missed that's critical in terms of that?
No, I think that covers it. I think it does.
Okay.
Okay, thanks.
All right. Thank you. Now we're on to number 4. Will not have an adverse impact on spawning grounds, fish, aquatic life, or bird wildlife habitat. That's the statement. So by a vote of whatever, the board found this standard was met based on, and this is where we say either existing materials submitted, or if we have some other phrase we want to put in there, we can do that. So phrasing it this way, voting. So George,
Yes.
yes. Mac,
Yes.
Rich,
Yes.
Pete,
Yes.
I would say yes, so that's 5-0. Based on materials that were submitted, would you suggest, or is there something else to better phrase there?
to ensure we capture the fact that our discussion is recorded, you might want to add material submitted and the project record.
And the project record.
Yeah, no, that's it. That's all I
Okay.
got.
Okay. All right.
That's it. That's all I got.
Okay, great. That's a good point too.
I got lost on that one. And the project record, what's that mean?
So that the record, the public record is everything they've submitted, everything we've discussed and has been recorded.
Oh, you call that the
And,
project?
and any questions and answers we've received too. Yeah.
Okay. You call that the project record?
Or a public record.
Oh, public record. Okay. Yeah, public record. All right. Thank you.
Do you mind if I put the public record rather
Yeah,
than?
no, that's fine. That makes more sense. Not so
Okay.
confusing.
All right, great. And so we might want to say that on the other ones too. Is that right?
Yeah.
All right, great. Stand by. Number 5, will conserve shore cover and visual as well as actual points of access to inland waters. So by a vote of whatever, the board found this standard was met based on. So this has to do with shore cover and visual as well as actual points of access to inland waters. George,
Yes.
Mac,
Yes.
Rich,
Yes.
Pete,
Yes.
and I say yes also. So
I do think we should add something in there. There's the last picture that says it's actually 25 feet, 10 inches, if I'm reading it correctly. And the ordinance says it has to be 25 feet or, right? So I guess I would say it's in terms of me convincing myself that it's fine, that the new construction is going to stay, it is not going to increase the existing height or width of the existing house. It's not going to change the existing dimensions. I can't say dimensions.
so
You know what I'm trying to get at?
yeah. And is that applicable in this number 5 where we're talking about?
I think so because it's visual.
I would just say it's not going to increase the existing height.
Okay, all right, that's good then.
So
That
so
might-
not increase existing height?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Correct. Correct.
Okay, George?
Mac, if I might suggest, maybe we do add that to number 8.
you think it's more to number 8 than to that?
Then number 5,
Yeah,
or
okay,
just my thought.
whichever. I think it's important to put in. If you think it's better than 8, that's
Agreed.
fine. And what Gary said, it's not going to increase, did you get what Gary said there, Peter?
Not increase existing height?
Yeah,
Got it. Existing. Okay, great. Thank you, everybody. Moving on to number 6. Will project archaeological, will protect archaeological and historic resources as designated in the comprehensive plan by a vote of, the board found this standard was met based on. So this has to do with archaeological and historic resources. George,
Yes.
whoops. Mac,
yes,
Rich,
Yes.
Pete,
Yes.
I say yes. So that would be
Ken say something, there are no designated archaeological or historic resources in this area, if you need to write
Yes.
something.
I am. That's a great point. There are no designated archaeological historic resources area and the public record. Number 7, will avoid problems associated with the floodplain development and use. So by a vote of, the board found the standard was met based on. So George, this has to do with plain. Mac,
Yes.
Rich,
Yes,
Pete,
Yes.
I say yes, so that's 5. 5 in favor, none opposed. So I have 5-0 materials submitted and the public record. Is there anything else we care to say about that on this one? And if not, that's fine. Number 8 is in conformance with the provisions of section 15 land use standards. And then by a vote of whatever, the board found this standard was met based on the evidence in the record and further as follows. This is where it goes A through X. We have stuff to fill in. So I guess I would suggest, and tell me how you think about this. Are there comments we want to put in on this, each of these? So A, B, C, D, E, so on. And then when we get done, we can vote on that one, on this one, which is called number 8. Is that okay, George?
I don't have the template in front of me, but I think this would be an appropriate place to, in our, basis statement, to note that that it can only be met with a condition that stormwater be managed appropriately with section 15I. And I don't know how to fit that in without having it in front of me.
I wish I could share my screen with you because
No, that's okay. I
point.
just wanted to remind you of that.
I'm glad you did, because at the conditions of approval needed to meet requirements in 16, shoreline zone ordinance findings in 16D, number 1, manage stormwater runoff. And that's right,
Oh,
it's right here.
okay.
I think that we're going to treat it. It says this is a standing condition that applies to all permits unless deemed unnecessary by the planning board based on the following rationale. So that allows us to not have it.
Okay.
So, so for the board, I just want to make sure I ask. Tell me if we're going off the tracks on this. So for number 8, we have letters A through X to deal with. I'm not asking for a dissertation, but if we have any comments we want to put in for these things, A is minimum lot standards. Is there a comment we want to put in for this? Like,
No, not me.
are there any comments for principal and accessory structures? Any comments for camp? Oh, I heard you say NA, so if it's okay with the board, I'll put NA until there's a comment. Is that all right?
Yes.
Not necessarily. So principal and accessory structures is applicable, but we don't have any comments. Camping is not applicable.
Okay. So what would you like for principal and accessory structures?
I would revert back to what we had for the others, which is based on application materials submitted or whatever we have.
I said materials submitted in the public record.
Great.
Campgrounds?
Not applicable.
I think that's NA.
Individual private campsites,
NA,
commercial and industrial uses,
NA,
parking areas,
NA,
roads and driveways,
That would be NA since none's proposed.
signs,
NA,
storm water runoff,
do we have a condition for the roof runoff?
how about if I say the same words that we use down below will be addressed as a standing condition? Is that acceptable?
Yeah,
Septic waste disposal systems. Submitted?
I think we addressed that in the other one.
Yeah, I would
I
just
think
repeat
so.
that.
Okay, will do.
Either repeat it or say refer to number 4 or 3 or whatever.
Yes, see above.
Do you mind if I say refer to number 3? Is that okay?
Yeah. That makes sense.
Okay. Essential services,
NA,
mineral exploration and extraction,
NA,
agriculture,
NA,
timber harvesting and land management roads,
NA,
clearing and removal of vegetation for activities other than timber harvesting,
NA,
hazard trees, storm damaged trees, and dead tree removal,
NA,
exemptions to clearing and vegetation removal requirements.
what was that one, Peter?
Exemptions to clearing and vegetation removal requirements.
I think NA,
Yeah. Revegetation requirements,
NA,
erosion and sedimentation control,
NA,
shoreline stabilization,
NA,
soils. There's no soil disturbance.
no, NA,
Water quality,
if anything, it's addressed with the condition of roof runoff.
historical and archaeological sites,
NA,
NA,
how about please see number 6 above?
yep,
And then resource protection.
NA,
NA,
All right, so that's it for the list here. So I'm thinking at this point we would vote on just on number 8, right? So number 8, so that it is in conformance with the provisions of section 15 land use standards, those things that we just discussed. So George,
yes,
Mac,
Yes.
Rich,
yes,
Pete,
yes,
and I say yes. So that's 5-0 on that one. Okay. Then after that, it says conditions of approval needed to meet required Belgrade Shoreline Zone ordinance findings in section 16 there are opportunities for a number of things, but we have a standing, one we have listed here, a standing condition is the manage the stormwater runoff from newer expanded structures in accordance with 15I. That's stated right here, okay? I don't think we have to do anything knowing that it's right there. Does anybody feel differently? Okay. So based on that, I think we're at a point where we would say either is permitted or is not permitted. Going back up to the beginning of number 2, where it says conclusions of law based upon the application materials, testimony, statements, evidence, documents, and other materials submitted to it, and the above findings of fact, the Belgrade Planning Board finds that the project is or is not permitted under section 14, table 1 in the ordinance. Anyway, that's that. So, let me just ask a procedural question. Do we vote to approve it and then say that it is permitted? I don't know.
That sounds reasonable to me, yeah.
Didn't we just vote to, I thought we just voted to approve it.
The last thing we voted on was just number 8 of the.
Right, but going through the findings of fact, that was wasn't that our decision? So based on that, based on all those votes, they came out to an approval.
And we haven't gone to that point where we said we've approved it or that it is permitted yet. And I guess that's what I'm asking right now.
Do we have to do a motion after going through all this crap? Not crap, but that
Procedures.
we find that this project, vote to accept the project and then vote on it. We've done the findings of fact and now we're verifying them.
I think so.
Okay. I like that, Rich.
Yep. So I think we're at that point. So I'd entertain a motion on this.
I'd make a motion that based on the positive findings that the planning board has made regarding this project, that we vote to approve the project with the condition.
Great. So we have a motion on the floor with the condition, the standing condition that we've talked about. And I know we're all very concerned about that. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
And seconded. Any more discussion? Roll call. George,
Yes.
Mac,
Yes.
Rich,
Yes.
Pete,
Yes.
I say yes. So I said 5-0. I said positive findings of fact. Is that acceptable for this purpose? I just wrote that as a reason that why it's permitted. Okay. Having done all that, I think what we've done with this, I think we've done this appropriately. And this also, for the record, shows that we've approved the application so that the permit will be issued. So I think that's it on this one. It feels like we're ending a little differently just because we're filling this out, but I don't know.
Hopefully it'll take less time in the future.
I'm hoping so. So procedurally, Sheila, I'm filling out the global form. Do you want me to save this as a version and then ship it to you?
Yes. Yeah.
Is there
Save it.
is there a naming convention you would prefer?
You mean like a file name?
Yeah, like do you want me to say, save as, and give it a name like,
Maybe save as Vintner. 37 Pickerel Lane.
Isn't there an application number?
Yeah, we don't really use those.
Are they unique? Are the application numbers unique?
They are
Yes.
unique.
I put Vintner. Would it be okay, Sheila, if we said the name of the applicant followed by the application number? So it would be Vintner
Sure.
and then whatever the application number is. Mac, do you have it?
Yeah.
Like 37-20?
The application number is 20-78.
Thank you. 20-78. All right, and I will save that to documents. Close that before anything else happens. I'll ship that to you in shortly, Sheila. Okay.
Do you want these attached to the minutes or do you want them?
Oh, like this that thing that we just did.
Yeah. Because otherwise I'll be recreating it in the minutes.
I don't think that's part of the minutes. That would go in the application file.
Right. So just your motions in the minutes.
Yep.
I mean, the minutes,
Okay.
yeah.
Right.
Right.
I would even say we just need that final motion of, is it approved or not approved?
So don't even put the condition in there like we normally do because that would
Oh,
be part of the
right.
findings.
I thought you were gonna put all the votes we
Yeah,
have.
no, that's what I'm wondering on how to do this. But that's okay. We can talk about that later. I'll
Yeah,
think
I
about it.
think the suggestion that there's no sense duplicating what's already been done and just
Right.
capturing the key points of the discussion and then the final vote
Yeah.
with a whatever condition, if any, was added.
But
Then if this ever gets appealed or whatever, then, we go to the project file.
yeah,
Okay. Right.
So I think that we're all good with this one, right? This is a little different, but it's been approved. So, right. So for the Vintners and for Mr. Winter, know that the permit will be mailed to you.
This is Vinton is speaking. Thank you very much for your time and all the thought and process you put in this. And thank you, Mark Winters, for helping us out with all this. Thank you very much.
Hey, Ralph, I'm sure Becky would beat me around the head and shoulders if I didn't say hello.
Hey, how are you? And hi, Rich Baker. Good seeing you.
Hi.
Good talking to you all. Take
Yeah,
care, guys.
It's been a while.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you very much. I appreciate it. Thank you guys for all you've done. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. Okay, so that was that one.
Yet one more coach of my son's.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Baseball?
Yeah.
That's great.
His stepson was on Randon's team.
Oh,
Oh, really?
He helped out at the high school too.
yeah. Yeah.
Great. All right. I think next on our agenda is the Duncan permit. Is that correct? Where are we?
That is correct.
All right. Super. Thanks, Gary. All right. So does everybody have the Duncan application in front of them?
Application 20-76.
Thanks, Gary.
The property is at 118 Bickford Place on Salmon Lake.
Okay.
And they want to enclose an existing deck, which is 10 by 28. And put a proposed addition on, which is 15 by 15.
Okay. Thanks, Gary. Existing, I'm looking at the application now. So beneath what Gary has read to us on number 6, We've got existing sewage disposal system and type and capacity. It's a replacement system variance. What does that mean? I'm
It
sorry,
means they put a new septic system in. I'm trying to figure out what year it was. Hold on a second. Hold on.
okay.
They put a new
It's like
septic system.
2014, 2014, Gary. Yeah.
Yeah, October 9th, 14th.
Okay, thank you. And,
It was for a 3-bedroom home,
okay, great.
270 gallons per day.
And that would be adequate here because they're going from 2 bedrooms, because it looks like according to this, they're going to add 1 bedroom for a total of 3 bedrooms, right?
I don't, let me look again. Yes, exactly right.
So if what they're proposing does not exceed that in terms of the number of bedrooms, then Gary, do you feel comfortable that the design system would be adequate for this?
It was designed for a 3-bedroom. They had 2 and they're gonna add 1.
Okay. And thank you. Number 7 says total lot area. It looks like about 1/3 of an acre.
Yeah, 0.32.
Yeah. And all of which was in the shoreland zone.
That's correct.
And I'm looking at number 8. It says the square footage of unvegetated surface within the shoreland zone is looks like 1,456 square feet.
Correct.
What is the total area of cleared openings of woody vegetation is
5250. So the present structure is 1,072 square feet. And the proposed structure is another 225.
Okay.
Is Clea on with you?
Previously, Gary, someone was on, but probably got tired of us talking.
Better, their battery died.
Yeah.
Good day.
I've got a question for somebody.
Yep.
It says present structure square footage is 1,072. The proposed is 225. Square footage of unvegetated surface within the shoreland zone, including all structures, says 1456.
Right.
What is that 5,250? Is that scratched out? And if it is, how can you have essentially almost 1,300 square feet of structure and not include the parking, the driveway, and you get 1456?
Hold on.
I
So
actually
the existing square footage of the camp is 1,072. And they want 225 square feet of new area. That's 70.
I don't know if this would help, but I had the same question as Rich. And so I went to the site drawing and added up the square footages for the garage and driveway, which is 1,600, the deck, the existing deck, which is 280, the camp, which is 792.
Yeah.
And then I added the 225 for the proposed addition, and I came up with 2,897 square feet, which comes to 20.8%.
Oh, wait a minute. Well, you know, part of this, it's an existing deck, square footage. There's an existing deck that's 10 by 28. So the footprint's already there. They're just gonna enclose it,
Right,
Yeah,
okay?
yeah,
The only addition they're doing is that, let me look, 15 by 15 feet,
yeah,
okay?
right.
That doesn't kick them over the existing square footage
By my
allowance, right?
calculations, it does. It's the addition that kicks them over. They're already just under 20% without that. By my calculations, maybe I've done it wrong, but
Well, you can't count 10 by 28 because it's already footprint. They're just enclosing that.
it's the total, it's cumulative. It's not proposed. I'm not adding anything because they're putting something on top of that footprint, but that footprint's already there,
Right.
And how big is that?
10 by 28.
So I got 1,072 existing.
That's without the garage, right?
You
Yeah,
can't count, the garage is beyond the 100-foot setback. You can't count the garage.
it
Okay.
is beyond 100 feet.
It's beyond 100 feet.
no, it's within the shoreline zone.
So we're talking about lot coverage. Are you, George?
What's that?
Talking about lot coverage?
Right. It's within the
Not-
shoreline zone, right?
Yeah, 20%.
Right, yeah, it's not, 100 feet has nothing to do with it.
Okay, so what are you saying?
I'm saying within 250 feet of the lake
Yeah,
is 2,897 square feet of unvegetated surfaces,
okay,
which comes to 20.8% of the total lot area, total
Okay.
area in the shoreline zone.
okay, okay. All right. I don't have a good explanation. She's not online, huh?
No, not at this time, Gary.
I wish she was.
I mean, my assessment is that, putting something on top of the deck is no big deal whatsoever.
Right, 'cause it's already
just that
footprint.
It's just the new addition out the side.
Okay. And
Yeah,
that's what,
Right.
Automatic.
It's
That's what-
possible they could do that addition at the side if they wanted to reduce the size of their driveway by a certain amount.
Right,
sorry. So that's
That's
what's
fine.
gonna kick them over the 20%.
yeah,
So what did you come up with? 28%?
20.8%. They're just over it.
20.8. Okay. All right.
So, I mean, 20% would be 2,787, well, 2,788 square feet.
Yeah.
This is Peter Sargent speaking.
Yes.
Maybe if we ask them to reduce the size of the driveway, they could get it in.
It's a good notion.
Make it skinnier, something,
They
Yeah.
wouldn't
Make it
have to
shorter.
reduce it by much.
right?
Well,
Just
they
make
would-
it smaller.
Right.
Put grass down there.
Right.
Right.
Okay.
That could work. So I have a procedural question I'd like to ask the board. The applicants aren't here to answer questions. We're coming up with some proposed maybe recommendations or considerations or something along those lines. But what we've talked about is that what's presented before us, without having the ability to ask the applicants anything, seems to exceed the standard that we have in the shoreline zone ordinance about,
The 20% lot coverage.
right? So the question I would have for the board is there an appetite to table this and have consultation with the applicant and Gary?
Yeah, I will do that.
Or would I'm just asking. It's either that or we deny it.
I
Now,
would
why
prefer
don't
to
you table it, and I will call Clea Duncan, and I'll say, well, what appears here is that you're exceeding the 20% lot coverage. Not by a lot, but a little bit.
Right,
So if you want to put this 15 by 15 addition on, you need to reduce your driveway width of something.
right. Or maybe they'll choose not to do the addition and just do the, the deck thing.
Yep.
Can I just interject?
Yeah.
Yes.
I agree with everything that everybody said so far, except my interpretation of vegetated surfaces is not just footprint and driveways. It's non-vegetated. So their whole property in the front there's no vegetation. And it says number 9 on the application, what is the total area of cleared openings of woody vegetation? 5250. So I think they're way over 20%.
Well, is that lawn down in the front? What we don't know.
Yeah, that's lawn down the front.
It's lawn. It's lawn from the front of the camp to the lake side is lawn.
That counts as vegetation.
Right.
If they have sidewalks there, say from the garage to the camp or down to the water, that would have to be counted in. But if that's just lawn down there, that doesn't have to be counted toward lot coverage.
See, I'm looking at, because I've had this question about other applications as well. This is the first one where it's actually come up for meaning. But page 90 in the definitions, if you look up vegetation, it says all live trees, shrubs, ground cover, and other plants, including without limitation trees both over and under 4 inches in diameter, measured at 4.5 feet above ground level. So it says trees, shrubs, ground cover, and other plants. I don't think that includes grass. I think it's meant to be vegetation. Does not mean grass. Vegetation to me means actually something with substance.
What do you consider ground cover?
Something other than grass, like it says shrub or some kind of a plant of some kind that can actually retain water.
This is Peter speaking, Sergeant. Would it help to go in the definitions section and see what, any definition back there?
That's what I'm
Definitions?
reading from, vegetation, because it says
Yep.
lot coverage, parentheses, footprint of all unvegetated surfaces. So if it says footprint of all unvegetated surfaces, I want to know what is vegetated.
Well, it's grass between the camp and the lake is lawn. It's lawn.
Right. But I'm saying,
Oh, yeah.
I didn't mean what on the application. I meant what is defined as vegetation. And I don't think grass is.
I can tell you that with my term at DEP, that definition of vegetation was interpreted as including grass.
So I have a question. Is there a difference between what we're thinking, what number 9 says is woody vegetation as compared to vegetation? I'm not trying to split hairs. I'm just trying to make sure we're talking about the same thing.
I think there's a big difference. Vegetation is far more inclusive. I mean, wooded vegetation would be woody shrubs, wood stemmed vegetation. So shrubs, trees.
Trees, right? So, and not in,
That's how a botanist would look at it.
right, and it would not be inclusive of grasses.
Yeah, right. Grasses would be
Herbaceous.
herbaceous. So that would be everything else.
Right. So to me, that's the distinguishing factor. Not that I'm trying to defend what has or has not been put on here, but that's how I was looking at it differently, Mac.
Okay, and I guess I put a lot of weight into Rich's comment that DEP has always interpreted vegetation as including grass. I'm not saying I would agree with that. I'll just put that out there. Because I think if it's clear cut between the house and the lake, that's not preventing runoff at all. But if that's how people interpret it, that's how people interpret it.
Well, and I agree with Mac's assessment that grass does not mitigate stormwater runoff or phosphorus
Right.
runoff. But I think also that's why there's a separate requirement for that. It doesn't rely on this standard to accomplish that goal.
Okay.
Thank you, Mac.
Right.
Is that,
In which case, then I will go back to what I will agree with what y'all were saying earlier about it's just the house and they need to reconfigure their addition or get rid of the driveway or whatever.
okay. I can't remember. Seems like it's been a long day already, but do we have a motion yet to table this?
Oh, we haven't had that yet.
May we?
Yes.
I would suggest you table the application. I will talk to Clea Duncan. And I will tell her that the next time that she's on the planning board agenda, she needs to be on the planning board agenda.
Yeah,
then
they had
we
explained.
we can explain to her what she needs to do.
Yeah, I apparently one or both of them just had surgery, so
Oh,
I
they did?
yeah, so I can understand why they couldn't
Okay.
hang in there.
Yeah, I just talked to her last week. I didn't know anything about that.
Oh,
Yeah.
were they the people that were on the phone because they couldn't be on? Oh, okay. Yeah, they must have just. All right.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah,
that's
they're realtors.
okay.
Yeah.
I feel bad then. They did say that they were
Okay.
struggling.
I didn't know that, but that's fine. If you want to table it, I will call her and I will talk to her. So George, you said it was what, 28%? No,
20.8%.
okay, yep.
And
Okay.
you had a comment, George?
Well, a question for Gary. Do you know what kind of foundation they were going to propose under the addition if we get that far?
I don't actually.
I
Nope.
only asked because they hadn't completed anything about a certified contractor. So if, they're
I
doing.
will ask that question. I think their house is on a complete foundation right now,
Okay, so maybe they're
other
planning.
than a deck that they want to enclose.
Yeah.
Yep, but
Yeah, I'm not
I'll
concerned
ask
about
that question. Yeah.
Just whether that triggers, the addition would trigger it if they,
Yeah.
work that all out.
Great discussion. Are we ready to table this? If so, I need a motion.
I'll make a motion to table this application pending more information.
Thank you. Motion seconded
Second.
and seconded. Any more discussion?
Oh, I'm sorry. I did have one other question.
Sure.
I guess on the map, I couldn't quite tell. It looked like the front of the property line where it says Salmon Lake.
Yeah.
Is a certain point, and then the 75-foot line goes further, and then it says high water line.
Hold
So,
on a second. I'm looking at it right now. So their existing camp is 75 feet from the high water line of Salmon Lake.
okay, but why does it then look like their property ends like 30 feet beyond the high water line? Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Not exactly.
Kind
No,
of got shows the shrubs and everything ending And then it says Salmon Lake as if we're in the lake. Is that
Okay,
what you mean, Mac?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
okay, I'm not sure. I'm not sure. I'll have to go, I'll call her and I'll go look at it again.
I wonder, Mac, and I'm using the scale that they showed. And
Oh, yep.
I'm just trying to count the cubes. I'm thinking from the one end of the arrow to the other end of the arrow is basically roughly 75 feet, if I did it right.
Mhm,
If I'm interpreting what they've tried to show us.
Right.
mhm.
Yeah, it's 5 feet each square.
And I was
Right.
just quickly trying to count them up, and I think that's the 75-foot distances from that to one end of the arrow to the other, which is where I think they're indicating is the high water line.
Yeah.
I
So
agree with
what-
you. It looks like looks like the high water line's in Salmon Lake, which is weird.
Exactly. That's my confusion. So it looks like there's what, maybe 20, 30 feet
Yeah.
between the high water line and their property line?
I don't know. I'm gonna, Mac, I'll have to go look at it. I'll have to go measure it myself.
Okay.
I rely
might
on
be-
I rely on these people to give me a accurate drawing, but it's like pulling teeth.
Yes. It might be clearer if they showed the water's edge and then put Salmon Lake on the other side of that.
Let me call. You table the application, I'll call Clee and I'll see if I can meet her down there. And I'll look
10-4.
at it. Okay?
Will do. We've got a motion on the floor. It's been seconded. Any more discussion? All those in favor? So George,
Yes.
Mac,
Yes.
Rich,
Yes.
Pete,
Yes.
and I vote in favor to table. So 5 in favor to table, none opposed. It'll be tabled. All right. Where are we?
I'm on the couch.
Yeah. It won't be long before I am. All right. I think next on our agenda is planning board minutes from the 19th of November. And thank you, Sheila, for helping get these together and shipping them out. We appreciate that. Does everybody have the minutes? Take a minute to review if we can. Right.
Sheila, are the red marks something that somebody's already made suggestions for changes for, or did you do that?
No, those are George's suggested changes
Okay.
or modifications, yeah.
Right. Great. People okay to have reviewed the minutes? And George, thank you for what you've done so far with those. Any additional edits or recommended edits? George, I think you've submitted some. Is that correct?
Yeah. Yeah, no, I'm good.
Rich,
I'm good with the changes.
Mac,
Good.
and Pete, any other changes?
No,
No. All right. I have no other changes. I think that I want to comment that I really appreciate and like the look of the minutes. We're getting to a good spot with these. This is good. Thank you very much, Sheila.
I agree.
It's helpful for future anybody that wants to look at the record, public record. That's what it's about. Okay, having said all that, I would entertain a motion to approve the minutes as amended.
I'll make a motion, we approve the minutes as amended.
Motion seconded
I'll second.
second.
and seconded. Any more discussion? All those in favor, George,
Yes.
Mac,
Yes.
Rich,
Yes,
Pete?
Yes,
I am in favor, 5 in favor, none opposed. Motion passes, minutes are approved. Thank you. Before we go, Gary, if you're still there, any other town business you need to appraise us of at this time?
I don't think so. No, I don't think so. Nothing new.
Okay, all right, thank you. Sheila, anything that you need to tell us about?
No, I don't have anything. We'll have a meeting on December 17th and we'll see about the 2 tabled items to see if we can bring them back for that.
Okay,
And we have more applications after that, so
understood.
we'll
Do
see
what
where
we
these
can.
2 fall. We'll see if we
We
can put them
have,
back on for the 17th.
KV
Right,
Cog,
Gary. No, we have a big one, right, Gary? The commercial one for Bright
Brightside.
Is that it? Bright Side. They've been waiting.
Mhm.
So
Right, okay. George?
I couldn't quite hear what Sheila was saying because she was breaking up, but when are we getting back to the subdivision ordinance? I thought we left it that was going to be on the agenda for an hour at the next meeting, but
I thought so too.
for this one here
yeah, for the next
This
one in
meeting?
December.
and for
17th.
December 17th. Okay.
Yep.
So you want me to put that on the, I'll put that on the agenda.
Well, assuming I would make sure Charles Tellman can make it, but my recollection, and correct me if I'm wrong, was that that's how we left it with him, and also that he was looking for us to kind of give him comments or questions about section 10, article 10 and 11 in advance of that meeting.
Right. Right, so yeah, so planning board members to review 10 and 11 to see if there's something we want to tell them, so you can come in, hit the ground running, right? So,
Yeah, I think
Okay, so
part of
we'll
it,
check in with him.
yeah, I think part of it was, to see if there's things we can kind of skip over that nobody has any comments or issues with.
Mhm. Okay.
yep. I'm writing to Anthony now and saying, can we please have it on the KV cog discussion on the agenda? And I don't know, Sheila, you might be on this one or not. I can't remember. No, it's just Anthony. So just so you all know. So I'm hoping we can get it on there.
Gary? Well, my question is, I don't know if Gary, if you can hear me, or maybe Sheila, but
I can hear you.
yeah, did Brightside hire a consultant?
Al Hodgson.
Oh, Al Hodgson's doing their application?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I was just curious.
Yep.
Okay. More fun, right? Coming up. All right, anything else for us to discuss tonight? No? Thank you all for all your help. Appreciate it. Let's call it
You-
9:25. Thanks, everybody.
Good night.
Thank you.
Great night.